All right. Hi, welcome to the My Yoga podcast. My name is Marta.
And I'm Zoe.
And we are here every month to talk about the different theming that we go through at the studio and ways that you can implement that into your life, both on the yoga mat and off the yoga mat. So it is April now. We're a couple days into April. And this month at Myriad Yoga, we are talking about the idea of transitions or transitional states in our life. So that is our focus for the whole month. So tell us a little bit about transitions and what we're kind of discussing right now, Zoe.
Yeah, so transition is kind of that flux state when we're moving from one thing to the next and when we're experiencing some sort of change that's occurring. So right now we're kind of in a transition as we're moving out of winter and into spring. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today, like that specific transition and how that affects us. And so it can affect us in a lot of ways, right? Like it can affect us physically with like allergies.
Yes, which I definitely have right now.
Yeah, I have seasonal allergies also. So that can make things just feel a little bit like foggy or stuffy, if you will. But also we can experience that like mentally and spiritually too. I know when I'm experiencing any sort of change or transition, it can kind of affect my mental state. How do you feel like you handle transition when it comes to like your mental and emotional state, especially this specific transition?
Yeah, it definitely depends on what I'm going through. I notice, I think a lot of people who partake in a lot of yoga, we become very hyper aware of how we're experiencing things in the world. And the longer that I've gone through practicing yoga in my life, the more I notice things that seem as, and they are like super regular as the change of seasons, right? We experience that 4 times a year, but every time they happen, especially the big transitional seasons of fall and spring where there's really a lot of change happening in the world outside too, I really notice the impact on it for me, and it comes in a multitude of ways. I think physically, I do experience a lot of seasonal allergies, so there's that kind of obvious one, but I also I don't sleep well when we're changing between seasons, especially when it comes between fall and winter and spring. I always have a really hard time sleeping in those transitional seasons of fall and spring. I think it's the temperatures are fluctuating a lot, the humidity is fluctuating a lot, the change in light that happens in the day really messes with me. And then that of course bleeds into the way I feel every day. This week is a great example. I've gotten terrible sleep all week.
Me too.
And I think there's been so much fluctuation outside. So then showing up every day for work, when I have to be here for other people is harder. It's harder to do that when you're exhausted, and it really affects the way that you feel mentally and emotionally.
Yeah, and something I was thinking of when you were saying that, kind of on the other hand, in winter, we're kind of in this hibernation type state or this rest type state where the energy is a bit slower and we're moving a bit slower and we might have a little less energy to do things. And then when that transition of spring starts to hit, I feel like my energy just ramps up. And I feel like that also impacts my sleep because I'm just more wired. I feel like my creative juices are flowing more and I'm I just want to get outside and I just want to do so many things. I feel like that personal energy returning to me.
Yeah, and I think the anticipation of what's coming, everyone's so excited. We always, I guess I shouldn't say we. I know I do this, and when I talk to a lot of people, it's this trying to rush through the fall or the spring season to get to the other side. It's why is it still so cold? Why hasn't it happened yet? because we're just waiting, the anticipation of what's coming on the other side, and that can also have a lot of impact on how we feel emotionally and whether or not we're being present in what's happening right now. If we're just kind of waiting for the next thing to come, like the next beautiful day, the next sunny day, you know, the next burst of warmth, whatever that is, there's that anticipation really kind of wears you out after a while.
Yeah, I know I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
When it hits spring, I'm like, okay, it's summer now, but it's not. We have like a whole season in between winter and summer, and it serves a purpose.
It does. It does. So like a lot of what we're talking about is how we can find more appreciation for the space in the transition, right? That space between fall and summer, which is spring, a whole transitional season. And that then reflects on our life, because not only do we go through seasons, literally like natural seasons, but there's seasons of our life that happen too that we go through. I've certainly gone through a lot of change. You know, now I'm on the other side of 35, and I've had some very transitional spaces in my life where I'm impacted physically, mentally, and emotionally because I'm going through these shifts. So everything that we're talking about this month can help us with those more practical sides of transition, but also those bigger, kind of headier topics of transition when we're maybe in flux between one state of our lives to the other state of our life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges that you experience with transition?
Well, I feel like I don't want things to change. I actually have struggled with that for most of my life, and especially in my adult life. And it actually ties really well into one of our themes this month, which is aparigraha, which is this non-grasping or non-clinging concept. Because when we want to cling to things being the same and we're resisting that change, then it can cause a lot of burden on us emotionally. And I'm really guilty of that. But I'm working on it, and I've been working towards finding some release with that and accepting that change is not only a part of life, like in the changing of seasons, but life is just ever changing. And so the more that you're able to lean into that and let go of the control that you have of wanting things to be the same, the more peace that you'll feel in your being in everyday life.
Yeah, exactly. I know learning to let go a little bit more, that's definitely a skill I've honed in on as I've gotten older, but there's still things I really struggle with. And for me, it's shown up a lot lately. Like I just had a birthday like a month ago, and a lot of people really love their birthdays. I don't really love my birthday, and I think it's the transition of getting a year older, and I'm always kind of clinging to my youth in a lot of ways. But I've been working really hard to try to get past that, because I have a lot of friends, or I know different people who've been able to let go that idea of like, what is youth? What is it to feel young? And it makes the process of aging so much more graceful, and it makes you accept all of the benefits of getting older, what comes with each year that you get older. But there really is, you have to be able to let go of what you were before to move forward with what you can become. Which is that whole concept of aparigraha. And that's just a change we're going throughout life. Like we're always getting older every moment of every day.
Yeah, that's a really good and like practical example, because everyone experiences aging. I honestly relate to that. I feel like I want to be young forever. But we can't do that. We're human beings.
But we can be young in spirit.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Like it's an energy, and that's what you're saying. Like that youthful energy and spirit can like exist in you no matter how old you are.
Yeah, and I will say it is true. It sounds really cliche, but the older that you do get a little wiser, and you kind of look back at things that you might have done when you were younger, and you're like, okay, like, you know, I have some different perspective on that now. And then you watch people who are younger than you go through some of those same things, and kind of like, okay, I was in that space before, I've been in that space. So there is an appreciation for all the knowledge that you gain with time, and being able to shift through that transition. It's just one example of like letting go of what you were so that you can become something different on the other side.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we've kind of talked about some challenges that we might experience as we're moving through transition. So we might want to cling to things and want them to stay the same, but what are some benefits of transition?
Yeah, so we're kind of like, peeking at that a little bit at the end there of those last few statements, but there's this concept of bardo, which is something that we're talking about at the studio this month, and this is a Tibetan Buddhist concept. It can be kind of complicated to wrap your head around, but it's the transitional state between death and rebirth, so in the concept of reincarnation. And according to this tradition, in that state, you're kind of in this weird space of flux where all of your human emotions and experiences are kind of like rapidly coming and going. So you're experiencing this vast change of emotions, and there's a bit of a freedom from them in that moment, but also they're kind of coming and going. You're seeing everything flash before you. And I think this is really relatable to how we feel in transition. When you're in a time of flux, you might feel a lot of highs and lows in your emotions. You might feel kind of all over the place, but there's also this bit of freedom when you come into a space of transition, because when you know that you're going through change, you're like, okay, tying back into aparigraha, I'm releasing something that isn't a part of me anymore. I'm releasing something that is in the past, and now I have a whole gateway to walk through of new experiences, and that's really exciting. But you have to be able to find that sense of freedom in between, and bardo kind of allows us to experience the fluxes of our emotions so that we can then come out on the other side and experience the freedom of letting go of those things.
And sometimes too, it can feel kind of magical, like being in that in-between state, if you let it. Like if you can choose to be really present with that state, you might realize things about yourself that you didn't know. And I'm speaking from personal experience because I feel like I've been in that state before, and I've been really emotional because of the change and transition that was taking place, and how I was kind of just in the middle of it and not really sure where I was headed next. But I was also like, okay, that's actually really beautiful, because now there's a lot of avenues that are opening up for me that might not have before if I wasn't experiencing this transition.
Yeah. And it's like that transitional state can be hard, but you're right. It's like opening yourself up to the benefits that you can receive from it is really great. I feel like I was in a transitional state like that lasted for a while a couple of years ago before I actually decided to switch to being a yoga instructor full time, where it was a state where I was like, okay, something in my life is not aligned right now. I need to let go of something. And I used to be a hairstylist, and that just, it wasn't really serving me anymore. I wasn't receiving a lot of benefit from it anymore, emotionally or mentally, and it felt very draining. But it was also really hard to let go of that because it was a very strong part of my identity. So being able to move through that state, kind of experiencing like what was good about this, what was bad about this, feeling all of those emotions eventually helped clear it out. It was like, okay, I'm okay with this. I can move on and be something different. And then the avenue kind of, unfolds itself for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, there's a lot of things that can be good and challenging about transition, but then there's, how do we actually deal with that? It's all good and easy to be like, oh, you just let it go and just like go with the flow. But how do we actually manage that? What are some tools that our yoga practice can provide for us?
So we have one very tangible practice, and it is pranayama, which is the breath or breath control. And do not underestimate the power of the breath.
Yeah.
I feel like the more that we can become present and aware of our breath, like whether that's in our yoga practice or even off the mat, the more that just grounds us into the present moment and can help us slow down and just take a second. And so if we're feeling overwhelmed by change and transition that's taking place, we can view it a little bit more objectively, maybe, and we can kind of help kind of, I don't want to say like dull our emotions that come with it, but you know, maybe manage them as they're coming through. And as someone who has a lot of anxiety, like the breath has been very powerful for me and pranayama practices specifically. And it's one of those things where, you know, you've heard it a bunch of times, like your breath is very powerful, and you know, like if you're like having an anxiety attack or something, they'll be like, just breathe, you know, like slow down your breath, like take
holding your breath and you don't know, or
right,
like breathing super fast.
Yeah.
And
so they're like, take deep breaths, and for a long time I was like, that's too simple, it won't work. And then I actually did it and put it into practice, and it worked, and I was almost kind of mad about it, because I'm like, why is something that simple so effective? But it really is. And our breath is just this vital life force that we all have within us, and we all have access to at any given moment. Like, we don't need our yoga mat to access it. We can access it at any point in the day, at any time.
Yeah, that's what's so great about pranayama, is it's the easiest part of a yoga practice to do anywhere, anytime. It takes like 1 second. All you have to do is observe one breath, and you're, you know, enacting pranayama in your everyday life, which is so simple and so easy. It's just remembering to do it. I think you use the word managing when you're talking about pranayama, which I really like, because we often break it down as breath control. The word control for me, I have a little bit of difficulty with it, because we can't really control anything in life, as we know, by transitions that happen, the seasons of our life that just transition whether we want them to or not. It's hard to think about being able to control something, but if we can manage the way that we're breathing, it gives us an opportunity to really slow down, because I think sometimes in times of transition, it feels like things are rushing at us very quickly, and it can feel unmanageable. So taking time and reminding yourself that you can breathe and you can manage your breath, it slows you down, it gives you a moment to pause and reflect on what's happening around you and how you want to deal with it as well.
Yeah, and that kind of creates a sense of like power, I feel like. That you know, might not be able to control your circumstances, but you can manage your breath. And that's really beautiful. It's a tool that we always have access to.
Yeah, it's like very much a sense of autonomy in the moment and a sense of self-power in the moment. And also, you know, prana is not just breath, but it is like our vital life force, as you said, and it's this energy that we have within us. So you can't always manage your circumstances. You can manage your breath, and you can also manage the way that you engage with or react to your circumstances. And that is really, really powerful. It's not easy to do all of the time, but when you realize that you can manage your reactions or your engagements with experiences, it gives you a really good feeling of power. It's like, okay, I don't have to be upset about this. I don't have to make this frustrating. I can change the way that I engage with the situation. And pranayama just kind of starts you on that path. Yeah.
So what are some other ways and tools that we can help navigate transition?
Yeah, so another teaching of the 8 limbs of yoga are tapas. And tapas is, oftentimes in yoga, it ends up being translated as like fire or vigor. I think we think about it a lot in our yoga practice, our physical asana practice, like those postures that make us feel really fiery, you know, like doing a boat pose or something, or getting a sweat on in your yoga class. And I think we translate it that way because really tapas is about dedication, austerity, and kind of purification. So, and it does stoke this inner heat within us, but that doesn't always have to mean like a physical heat. I like to think about it as a dedication, especially a dedication to our yoga practice. Being dedicated to your yoga practice during times of change can be really transformational. because yoga reminds us to be super present in every moment of every day. And when we're going through seasons of change and things feel like they're rushing at us, the reminder to be present, which also ties back to our pranayama, is really important, because we don't want to just jump ahead of the change. We want to experience what's happening so that we can take it in fully and not just rush through, because so often it's not just about where we're headed at the end, but it's everything that happens along the way there, all the little parts of the journey. So reminding ourselves to constantly be present and to be dedicated to that is a really great practice we can get from tapas. And in addition to that, tapas it stokes this commitment or this dedication within us, which we think of as being kind of a fiery or warm quality, which can stoke our inner fire. And when you think about fire, fire is very transformative in nature. So fire burns things away. It can create with destruction. It's very powerful. And just like the transformation of fire, if we see the inspiration of that, seasons of change in our life often have the power to transform us on the other side. So as things kind of burn away around us that we're leaving behind, it leaves space for something new to rise up out of the ashes, which is a really lovely concept, I think, as well, to help us deal with that change.
It is, and you always have such lovely metaphors and analogies, I feel like, to describe things. You're just so poetic.
Thank you.
I feel like I've said that in every single episode that we've had so far.
Gonna make me blush.
But that fiery element is actually a really good segue into another way that we can help manage transitions, and it is kapha, which is an Ayurvedic concept, and it kind of represents the earth and water element. So those are two very different things, but they both have very great qualities that can help us with change and transition. And so we have the earth element, which helps us ground. And so we can do that with tangible practice like asana and pranayama, and anything physical that helps you, feel connected to that grounded sense of self, meaning that we can take some time to slow down and really be present with our thoughts as they're coming through. And then we have the water element, which reminds us to be adaptable and be able to flow with that change. We can kind of envision ourselves like the wave, right? So as we're experiencing transition, we're, instead of resisting that wave as it comes through, we kind of are the wave and we're riding it as we go.
Yeah, because if you resist it, it'll just knock you over and it won't be comfortable.
That's not cute.
If you've ever gotten barreled through a wave in the ocean, it's really uncomfortable.
Yeah.
But if you let yourself just ride with it, it's a much more enjoyable experience. Yeah. I think the good thing about those two is, we've talked about a couple of different elements now. We've mentioned fire, water, and earth, is that when we think about all these things, it's the reminder too that they all help us stay balanced. And finding a sense of balance for yourself is really important in a time of change, because when things are in flux, you're going to experience a lot of highs and lows. So what can you tap into to help you feel more balanced? Through the dedication of your tapas, finding those routines, the things that you commit to that help you feel good, through your grounding practices, and your ability to just let go a little bit and find more flow. It's all of those things working together. It's not like one is more important or better than the other, but that all of those tying together helps you find that steadiness amongst all of the high and low in your life.
I'm gonna take all of this with me and use it during this season, and hopefully I'll adapt better to the change.
I have another analogy for you too.
I'm here for it.
So when I think about kapha a lot, right, we've got the elements of earth and water, both of which I love. I'm a very strongly kaphic person myself.
Yes.
And I was kind of trying to think about this and relating it to nature, because when we talk about seasons of transition and when we're in spring, and I always like to think about the lessons that we can learn just from the natural world around us. And plants can weather intense change, and intense transformation happens with plants. Like, we just had a bunch of storms last night. It was really crazy outside, windy and rainy, and probably in like 6 weeks it's gonna be super dry, and somehow my plants will live through all of this, which is insane. But they start by rooting first. The first thing that a seed does is it roots down into the ground, and it grows its roots really nice and deep so that it can get rooted and steady and grounded. And that's like that earth element. We have to start with the things that help us feel really rooted and grounded. And then those roots pull up nutrients and water and things from the earth so that as we grow taller, we're really stabilized because those roots are there with us. Then when those seasons of transition happen, like the heavy storms, the heavy rains, like we might get a deluge of water poured upon us. But if you're rooted down really well, you can just kind of accept it and let it wash over you. And then probably the next day, those plants are gonna be like an inch taller, probably gonna be a little bit greener. Usually their leaves are a little bit broader. So it's always amazing to me to like watch that after a storm as the plants. I'm like, wow, you just went through some shit and now you're like looking a little more beautiful on the other side. But they're taking it all in, right? They're rooting down, they're accepting the watery element, letting it flow over them, and it's not resisting the change.
And I mean, honestly, we're not much different from that.
Yeah.
We exist within nature also, and we possess a lot of those qualities. I'm just blown away again. It's beautiful. I love it.
It's like if you ever feel really dirty and take a shower and you come out on the other side and you're like, I'm a little brighter now.
That's me every day.
All right, well, I think that kind of wraps everything up. So we'll just do kind of a final conclusion, everything. So it's spring, so we're talking all about transition and seasons of change in our life. And the hard things about transition are clinging to stuff,
Yes,
right? So
yeah.
we want to practice.
Aparigraha.
Yeah, letting
go.
of what was. But the benefits of transition are that we can experience a lot of beauty in those moments, in those transitional states, which we can be inspired from by
tuning into our breath and doing pranayama practices to help ground us.
And just really like finding flow with those like bardo states, those transitional states in between.
Yes.
Yep. And then we can manage all of that with the pranayama, and of course finding dedication to our practice through tapas, and then also inspiration from kapha, water and earth elements. So that's everything for April. Stay tuned for next month, and we'll see you then. Yay!